What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer, and this is the first time back on the Delivering Sports podcast in quite a bit of time. But uh, I do plan on coming back once a week for Delivering Sports again. I have been doing full time on the other channel, which is now called Blue Milk Boys Gaming. If you knew me for RV Culture before, um, but yeah, the thing is I growing up, I always viewed sports as a getaway, basically an escape from all the stuff that was going on in my life. So that is the reason I haven't made a podcast in a while. Um, I just think that things are getting a little too political for my taste when it comes to sports, and that's what I want this show to represent for you guys. Something silly for you guys to get an escape from. I'm not here to make any political statements or anything like that. So hopefully you guys kind of share that sentiment with me. I'm sorry if you were expecting something like that out of me. It's just not something that I'm interested in doing, nor do I no, I plan on doing. And of course, some of them will, especially as I start doing this once a week now, some of those topics will bleed into my conversation, but it's definitely not going to be the main driving factor, is what I'm trying to get at here, guys. So let's just get into it. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode, just so I have something to put up on the podcast to reintroduce, the whole show format and everything for you guys. But yes, sports are officially they're actually back. Baseballs did start its season. It was very strange, obviously. There's no fans or anything like that, but and the excitement level wasn't there for sure. I think that was something that maybe we all noticed. But what I wanted to specifically talk about baseball today, and just for a second, is this whole idea: is who has the advantage? Is it pitchers or is it batters? And I don't think we're going to get that answer off of one day, especially because we know how baseball can fluctuate. So I'm going to kind of wait like a week to get a feel for that. But one of the more interesting prop bets that have been going out is this idea: is someone going to bat over 400? Because in theory, at the very least, you would think that batters have a little bit of a more advantage, while pitchers get into the swing of things. They haven't been throwing as much, and people can bat anywhere. There's batting cages. Because they're professionals, I'm sure they have people pitching to them all the time, assuming that they did their workouts. And that's another thing, just with sports in general, that I've been thinking about. It's hard to say overall who's going to be affected. I think it's going to be a much more individual based thing. I think the higher paid players probably have access to way more resources when it comes to training, so they'll probably be good to go. Oh, I one second. I have the shopping show logo up. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm interning with them, so I'm in their studio recording this. But in any case, I would say the higher paid players probably have access to a lot more resources and training, so they're probably going to be a lot more geared and ready to go. I definitely got the sense out of that out of the Yankees, some of their top tier players, um, especially who was it that dinged a home run in his first at bat off of Scherzer in the Nationals game. So let's go over some of the facts real quick of when it comes to batting. So, has anyone ever batted over 400 a season? Like, that's the big prop bet season, like I said. Um, yes, someone did in 1941. His name was Ted Williams. He hit 406 for the Boston Red Sox. So, yeah, normally it's impossible to do because there's just 162 games and it's impossible to possibly keep that up. Someone did it, but so has anyone ever hit over 400 through the first 60 games? So I guess this is kind of comparable. Uh, so yeah, so this was Williams. He did it a second time, and he bat 412 in 1948. Hank Aaron hit 402 through the first 60 in 1959. Rod Crew 411 in 1983. Paul O'Neill 417 in 1994. Larry Walker 417 in 1997. And another player, actually, Tony Gwynn, 403 in 1997. And the most recent was Chipper Jones, 409 in 1998. So no one in the past 2 decades has been able to accomplish this. Now, this is, I think, a little bit of special circumstances. You stop abruptly, and then you kind of go back into it. It's not like you had a whole off season. But, at first, when I first thought about it, I'm like, yes, I actually put some money to put someone's going to bat over 400. It's a hot start. But then you start really thinking about 60-game season. And then, you feel comfortable with certain batters who may have the actual capability of doing it, because I think that list is pretty short. then you say, okay, what happens if they test positive? Even that could just critically reduce your chances of doing this. And plus, baseball is all about travel. You don't know what these guys are doing. They're not in a bubble like the NBA or the NHL. They get to go home after the games, and there's a lot of traveling. But what I'm saying, if you have a home stretch of home games, you're going home after the game. That means you can go out and do whatever the heck you want. Not that they can't do that from away games, but the schedule is usually a little tighter when you're in away cities for baseball, at least. Not like basketball. Um, so let's take a look. So yes is a plus 800, and then no is minus 1400. So if you want my advice, no, I don't think anyone's going to bat over 400, but it would be really cool to see someone do that. And the debates that would come if it's legitimate or not. Obviously no one would say it's legitimate over an entire season, but just even in this small sample size of 60 games, it's been done before. Do you include them in the list? Because 60 games usually is less than 100 games. There's still like 100 games usually left to go in the season. So do you put would you put that in the names that I just mentioned there? Moving on from baseball, and I'll talk a little bit more about it then. There's something related that I want to discuss, but basketball is soon to follow, and they've been doing scrimmage games. And I think the NBA has done actually a kind of shoddy job of promoting, because yes, they are scrimmage games. They don't mean anything, but to a lot of us, they probably do. And to me, like Kevin had to text me about that they were coming on. And yes, I should know that as a sports analyst, but still, you don't see it every day, and you don't see it on apps like The Score. So there's nothing for me to look forward to. I knew baseball, of course, because you could see that. But that's just a side note. It is awesome to see basketball back. I'm really excited. I think they have the highest chance to actually have the rest of their season play out, unlike baseball. But now we can kind of talk about where the two kind of collide. And first of all, should there be fans in stadiums? I kind of had this discussion before we really knew the full details of what was going on. And NASCAR is doing it. NASCAR has a limited number of people they're allowing into their races, and it seems to be working for them. The only problem I have, and I've discussed this with my dad a little bit, is these NASCAR guys. First, they probably aren't going to get tested unless it's something severe. So we have no idea, and that's the thing. This virus can spread so easily. And there's so many people who are asymptomatic. I've heard numbers like 80%. Who knows if that's true? At the very least, I know a lot of people who have it and carry it do not have any symptoms. So think about these mass events for sports. They're very unique. We don't usually have this many people, other than maybe concerts, who are gathering this much. So it could help spread like wildfire. And especially if you're traveling into town or something like that, then you're bringing it back to your home state. We already know Texas and Florida and New York, and I'm not here to talk about, how many people die from it. It's a real virus, obviously, at the end of the day, and we don't want it to spread. And I can only imagine letting fans in also causes a lot of logistical issues. That's a whole nother thing. If everyone's a season ticket holder or something like that, especially we can just talk about football for a second. They're all, related. You have season ticket holders who take up at least 25%. I don't know what the numbers are. It has to be, I think it's like the majority of the seats, or a quarter. Let's just say minimum it's a quarter. You're not, as far as I understand, none of the professional sports, if they do allow fans, are allowing more than like 25% of people. So you have more season ticket holders than you do seats that you can give out. And how do you distribute those tickets? It doesn't make sense to me. And the thing is, it's like, okay, you basically tell the season ticket holders, you get these 4 games, and so on and so forth. Well, the thing is, there's a problem with that. And it would be for me if I was a season ticket holder. If I'm a Raiders season ticket holder and I get these 4 games, and one of those 4 games is like, let's say you're playing the Broncos, and your buddy who bought season tickets too gets the Buccaneers Monday night game. Those are not equivocal at all. I would be so mad about that. And I guess you can say you can trade it off to next season. That's a whole other issue, because they're not looking to, give money back for the stadium, especially the Raiders stadium, because it just got built. They're looking to take in as much money as humanly possible. So I just think, I don't know what they're going to do for next season. They're going to be so far behind. I think they're going to try to like cut season ticket holders or something like that Who knows? We'll have to get to that when we get there. But um, in terms of, so that was just fans. Let's talk about players for a second, and especially we can start with the NBA. I said this so early on. I don't think a lot of these players are going to follow the guidelines and rules that are set in place. People have already been caught. Dwight Howard already got caught breaking the rules, trying to go out. These guys are million gajillionaires, a lot of them. They don't think the rules apply to them. Their egos are boosted beyond comprehension, which is understandable on some level. If I was a gajillionaire, who knows how I would change. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm some glorious person that would just like spread happiness and wealth and be the coolest person ever. Nah, man, my ego would probably be inflated if I was talking on ESPN right now, everything like that. So it's just the thing is, and I think it's more of a problem for baseball than it probably is for basketball because they really don't have that much time to be there. And even still, players are leaving the bubble at a tremendous rate that we're hearing about. I think like half of the Clippers roster left the bubble today, and they could be for some serious family issues. I'm not going to dispute that. Maybe there is. I just never heard about like it just seems strange that people are leaving the bubble when in the regular season you hear this maybe once a season, maybe twice. A coach has health problems, a player has has a kid or something like that, but never at this rate. These guys are sick of being in the bubble already, and the season has not even started. So who knows what that's going to be. And I think the challenge with sports, and like I said, I think NBA has the best chance because they technically are in a bubble. But when it comes to baseball, which I don't think is going to finish their season, if a player gets it and they go to practice, you can get it at any time. Who knows? I don't think baseball's testing every day. I don't think that's logistically possible. They probably do once a week or something like that. So let's say the player gets it because they went out to a bar the night before and no one knew about it, because that's very possible. No one's monitoring them. I don't think anyone has a chip in their phone or anything like that, which would probably be a good idea. But in any case, they go to practice, they have COVID, the entire team gets COVID. Or like, let's say 50% of the players, your starters, get the virus, and you don't have enough for a roster. Do you then call up half of the guys in your minor league system that aren't playing baseball because that, AAA baseball got canceled? Do you just call them up out of nowhere? And if you don't, and then basically no one knows who has the virus, and you can't do the players of the opposing team, are they going to be comfortable playing a team that's infested with it because their equipment's going to have it all over them, and a lot of times you're playing these teams 4 times. In baseball you can play the same team 2 or 3 times in a day or in a week. So I think it's a major problem, and I would say the NBA is safer, but it's also a higher risk because you guys aren't separated. If a player tests positive in MLB, you can tell them to stay home at least if the other players somehow turn out clean. But in basketball, these guys are like sharing the same building. So if one player gets it, I would imagine it's going to spread like crazy. And then what do you do at that point? Do you delay it even more? Or do you just cancel the whole rest of the season? That would be a nightmare. I think hockey's doing okay. I think hockey has definitely the best chance to succeed because Canada definitely has this virus under a much better control than the United States does, in a sense. So and plus, when you're in the middle of nowhere in Canada, that's where you're going to go anyways. You're probably just going to stay with the team. Those guys are typically a little more professional. There's some of the big ego guys, of course, but I would say on average, these guys are a lot more humbled maybe than NBA players. I don't think that's a stretch to say that. I'd be curious if you guys disagree. So, and that's one of the major problems I had with the NBA in the first place is why would you, first of all, you set it up in Florida where the numbers are the worst in the country, whatever that number may be. I think we can all agree that they have it the worst because they just haven't been handling it very well. First of all, why are you setting up there? Why do it in Disney if you're not going to allow these guys' families to go out into Disneyland and do the rides and stuff like that? Like, they're really just there for the facilities. So why tempt these millionaire players with with this? I actually don't understand that. Why not go to Milwaukee where these guys have no desire to go outside, and that way you can finish the season. You don't have to worry about Dwight Howard going out in Florida because you know he's going to want to. He's from Florida. He played so long in his career. And I know I keep going to Dwight Howard, but that's just the one that that's one of the more big ones that got announced. But it's just, you're in a city where people want to go out. I don't understand that. You can make a nice facility anywhere if these guys are supposed to stay inside. Just buy the same stuff that's inside this facility at Disneyland, and just move it here and take it somewhere else. So that's my little discussion on that. Um, Another thing that I want to talk about is college sports. This is a completely different issue for me. I do not feel the same way at all as I do with professional and NCAA. In that these are men. The NBA has a players association, MLB has their players association, and so on and so forth. These we talk about NCAA. These kids are like 18, 19, 20 years old. They don't have like a union rep or something, like that. They're at the mercy of these multi-million dollar companies, and that's what billion, I think, and that's what worries me the most about this. You know, we had this whole opt-out thing for the NBA, but when it comes to these kids, man, they're fighting for a contract for their lives to get where those guys are. So I doubt any of them are going to decline to have a season in NCAA. But is it worth millions of dollars at the caveat that these young kids could seriously damage their bodies by getting this disease? I mean, I guess the thing is, a lot of these college campuses these colleges can't afford not to have a season, but at the expense of children's health. I mean, these are kids, man. I know there are a lot of them going to be adults, or they obviously all become adults, but a lot of them go on to become millionaires and stuff like that. But that is such a small percentage of NCAA sports. I think we should cancel all college sports for the next season, unless there's a vaccine or something like that comes out. I think that's a different scenario. I'm just worried, man. I would hate to. It's going to happen. First of all, it's going to happen. It's guaranteed. You have a football season, even if it's in conference, which a lot of these guys have announced. It doesn't matter, man. First of all, they're kids, which tenfold, means they're going out. There's no way they're monitoring them. They're like, I remember when I was 18. Think about when you were 18. Basically, going out is your life. I mean, that's what you do. So these kids, if you have a season, are going to spread. Teams are going to get the coronavirus. That's the thing. It goes without say. And I don't know if we as fans should ignite and support this idea. So that's my little spiel, I guess, on college sports. Now I'm going to go down the line and say not whether all these sports are going to start. It's whether or not they're going to finish. Let's start with the NHL. Like I said, Canada has this thing under wraps. They're in the middle of nowhere in Canada for the most part. It's not like they're in Florida. It's not like they're in Miami, that kind of thing. I think hockey's good. Definitely be probably a few guys who get it somehow, some way. I think that number is going to be much more low. They've kept it much under wraps, and the guys are kind of on the same page on that front. NBA, yes, I think they'll finish. I don't think what we're going to see in the finals, I think, will shock people. It may be the teams that you think are going to be. It might be the Lakers versus the Milwaukee Bucks in the finals. Whether or not we see the idea that every single one of them is going to be clean by the time that happens, and we're going to get a full-powered Lakers squad versus a full-powered Milwaukee squad. I just don't think that's going to happen, but I do think that basketball will finish in some sort of way, and then we'll have to have a discussion after that. That'll be good content for me to talk about whether or not it actually counts. Baseball, no, I don't. I think there's going to be a big outbreak somewhere. It's going to mess up the schedule, and do you just knock that baseball team out? The thing is if there is some sort of massive spike in any state, let's say, and they don't allow mass gatherings, then you have to shift an entire team somewhere else. What if an entire team gets the virus? Do you just throw them out of the season or something like that? These are legitimate issues because if you have the virus, you have to sit out for 3 weeks at least. What if an entire team gets it because someone had it at practice? That's an entire team out of contention that you can't sit an entire baseball team out for 3 weeks. I don't think it's possible. I don't think baseball is going to finish. Do I think we're going to have a college football season? No, I don't either. Even if they say they are now and they're announcing their schedule, I don't think it's going to happen. I think a lot of these states are probably going to get a lot more intense, and I think they're going to start limiting the gathering. And if you limit the gathering to like 4 people, well, then that's more than one side of a football team. So not going to happen. That's going to do it for today's podcast, guys. Again, just a little quick episode on the Delivering Sports page for you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Welcome back. And I'm hoping to actually have my own radio show soon. I'm recording from the station. I just started interning with KSHP. So as you guys probably saw, if you're watching this on YouTube, there's a logo like right here. So that's where that comes from. In any case, guys, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be back on Delivering Sports. And hopefully you'll hear me live soon. Other than that, you know where to find me on podcast.